I'm going to talk about the moon landing hoax and Cydonia. First, I'm going to talk about the moon landing, and then I'm going to talk about Cydonia. So there's people who say that the moon landing was a hoax. I'm going to give you my opinion because I was skeptical. And now that we have the internet, we can research all sorts of wonderful things. But I'm going to tell you the things that are suspicious about the moon landing that may have been discredited or disproven. I would say that they haven't been discredited or disproven. I'm just going to tell you the big things. And I do believe that the moon landing happened, but I'm just going to tell you what I have discovered over the years. First of all, my understanding is that when the moon landing occurred, which, as everyone says, the greatest event of mankind, they didn't allow the news media to have a feed for the video coming from the moon landing. And what that means is when you are with the news media and you go to the White House and the president's going to speak, you might not have a camera. They have their own camera, and you're going to plug your equipment into a switch, and everyone's going to get their plug, and you get an exact copy of the digital information that is being recorded. And the guy said that this was not permitted to happen during the moon landing, but it must have been a general practice, which is just really strange. So you can't see the videos. And what they did was they had to stand around a television with their cameras and they had to record the TV. And you've probably seen that, and you might even remember that. Yeah, I remember seeing this horrible quality moon landing video that looked like it was on a TV. And I don't know if this is true or not, but that's something that I read. Another one was there's tons of photographs. And yeah, people make mistakes, but there were some weird ones. One of them was there's a photograph of the moon. You see the contour of the hills. You see the stars in the sky. And it was like someone took a magic marker and traced along the mountains. And it was like, why would somebody do that? And that's what the guy says, is why would somebody trace along the hills off in the distance with a magic marker? It was an equidistant line that would never happen from a photograph. And he said, this is supposed to be an untouched photo. So there was all the things with shadows and things like that. I never believed any of that. Although there was the weird one, it seemed like the shadow of the U.S., the back where it showed the U.S. flag, you could see the U.S. flag clearly, but it was on the shade side, and it was like, where was the light coming from? That what I was confused about. And then there's the rock with the letter C on it, which is weird. And there was another one where when they take a photo, it puts crosshairs on it. And there was one photo where it was crooked. The crosshairs were at a weird angle. And the thing is, we were told that these crosshairs were part of the camera. So any photo that you took would have these crosshairs on it. And you have a rectangular photo with the crosshairs going across the screen. But there was one where the crosshairs were crooked and the photo was still rectangular. Horizontal photo, crooked crosshairs. That's not possible. How did that happen? It makes no sense. I've developed film before. Even through the development process, how does that happen? You can't accidentally develop something at an angle. Not possible. So there were things about, look at this, over here it's missing, and it was because it was overexposed. You know, I'm a photographer. So the overexposure issues, the people were making conclusions that weren't valid. So then there was another one where a ship launches from the surface of the moon, yet the camera tracked it. Who was operating the camera? And when I read that, that was like, yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. Who was on the moon when everybody was leaving, tracking the spaceship? And NASA, many years later, I mean, talking about 10 years ago maybe, 40 or 50 years after the moon landing, said it was a guy operating the camera remotely, and he had to anticipate when because there's like a minute delay, he had to anticipate when it was going to launch, and he had to control the camera a minute in advance. And if you watch it taking off, it doesn't look like it was tracked like the way a person would do it if a person were really there. It looks like a guy trying to predict where it's going to be. That's what I seem to remember. You can go and actually look at the film. So then there's Mythbusters. And Mythbusters did a show where they allegedly disproved all the hoax stuff. But here's the problem. They said, okay, look at the flag, and the flag can't wave like that in a vacuum. not possible. So they say, oh, we're going to prove it. And they get a vacuum and they put the flag in it because the moon is in a vacuum. And they make their own video of the flag in their vacuum based on the one on the moon. And they say, oh, look, it's the same, therefore it is possible. But the problem is, the accusation was that the flag that is shown waving on the moon was produced in a vacuum. And they're disproving that by doing the same thing in a vacuum. You see the problem? What they actually did was confirmed, yes, it is possible to make the flag look like that on Earth. And they're supposed to be saying, no, this is, they're doing it under the presumption that that's real moon footage. So that was a mistake. Mythbusters makes a lot of mistakes. It's not the only one. I should make a video series about all the mistakes that they make because it's crazy. Okay, so moon landing. Was there anything else that was weird? There were many more because the moon hoax people found all sorts of crazy things. Like there was one where they said this is at one location and this was listed as being occurring at another location, and when you watch the two videos are the same location, but that can be human error, right? And then there's another one where here's a photo taken of this mountain, here's another photo of this other mountain, but notice the rock is in one photo but not in the other. Well, that's just because the person was closer to the camera and the rock was behind him. As a photographer, I know things like this. Now, there is another big issue with the moon hoax. If something is not true, it's disproven by evidence. However, if a hoax is not true, it's disproven by evidence. It goes both ways. So the moon landing can be disproven by evidence, but they're going to disprove the hoax page. You use evidence also, but that's not what they did. Well, they did do that too, but they also had the sites taken down. You used to be able to go on Yahoo, and there may have been a moon hoax section and links to moon hoax videos. And on Google, for example, and I read all these pages, and they really went into so much detail, and you could decide on your own. And you're not going to come away saying the moon landing is a hoax, but you're going to come around saying there's a lot of weird things going on. And one day, NASA started talking about moon hoaxes, and they said that they not to believe it or something like that. And they were starting to say, okay, the reason why the camera didn't follow the rocket is because there was a guy, and they say his name, and it's, oh, what a hero he was, and how old he was, and they do like a little bio, and they show him operating the camera, and how it's a remote camera, and they put out a video discrediting the hoax claims, but they discredited like 5 hoax claims out of, like a couple hundred. But the other thing that happened was Yahoo removed links to any website that was a moon hoax website. Or they removed the links to all the good moon hoax websites, and they left all the crappy ones that didn't have any useful information. Or they only left the ones that had accusations with no evidence, or the ones that only focused on one thing and nothing else. So the people went into a lot of detail about the engineering, like how did they put the air in the tire? The tire would not have fit. They said, oh, well, the air was already in it. Well, then it doesn't fit through the portal because the portal was smaller than the size of the tire. They came up with good arguments. So, again, I believe in the moon landings, but I'm just telling you that there was just cause to wonder about the moon landings. So then you have Cydonia. And Cydonia is a place where it looks like there's pyramids and a face on Mars. And what I saw was pyramids, some were 5-sided, face on Mars. And there were 3 photographs taken, I believe, of this place. The first one, the photos are like, don't look like anything. And the second one, you see the face of Mars and pyramids. And there was a guy who did all these different measurements. He measured all the angles between everything. And he was saying, this right here is the angle of pi. This right here is this mathematical constant. This right here is a distance from the Earth to the moon. This right here is a distance from the Earth to the sun. And he went through an amazing number of things from all these angles. It's like someone sat there and said, we're going to build pyramids with a message. Really crazy. And it was mind-blowing, and it was really convincing. And then around the year 2000, not because they wanted to, but because of demand from people to dispute the hoax, they went and filmed it again. You know, you would think they would say, well, we should because it's an interesting place, because it's like the only interesting place on Mars. It's the most interesting place on Mars. So they decided to do it again. And then when you see it again, you can say, okay, it doesn't look like a face on Mars. But the problem is the pyramids still kind of look like pyramids. But when you look at it, they still have weird pyramid shapes, but it looks like it's covered with something, like with dust or with dirt. And the shapes are at the base of the pyramid, it looks like a pyramid, but moving up towards the top of the pyramid, it kind of maybe looks like an altered pyramid. However, I don't think they have proven yet in Cydonia that they're not pyramids. The face is not a face. That I'm pretty sure. Go and look for yourself. Maybe since I haven't seen them in like 10 years or 15 years, maybe I would change my mind today, but that was the initial impression that I saw when I looked at the pyramids on Mars.